Do you think one mind is better than many? Neither do we. A University of Chicago Booth School of Business MBA is for curious and collaborative people who value different perspectives and ideas. Chicago Booth takes pride in empowering and being empowered by women of diverse backgrounds. We believe that fostering an inclusive community creates an environment of analytical, open-minded inquiry and produces knowledge with enduring impact. Learn more today at chicagobooth.edu/elevate. Welcome to the Ellevate Podcast, conversations with women changing the face of business. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Ellevate Podcast. I'm Megan. I am so excited to have you back. Let's talk first about what's coming up at Ellevate. On our roundtables this Thursday, that's tomorrow, we have our Ellevate Roundtable, all about creating a personal brand that makes you visible at work. We just had an executive roundtable all about visibility, and it was a super popular topic. We had hundreds of registrations, so we really wanted to bring that to our regular Ellevate Roundtable as well. And our entrepreneurs are going to be meeting also on Thursday, and they're going to be having a session all about elevating your connections, which is really just networking, but made fun, made easy, and you're not going to want to miss that, especially if you are an entrepreneur. Our community circles, I'm so excited to announce the first one. It is the first of its kind. We are launching a new community circle, which makes me so happy every time we launch one of these. This upcoming Monday is going to be our community circle for Disabled Women Plus. If you are in the community of disabled persons, please come, please attend. It's coming up on Monday. I could not be more excited. It's going to be incredible. I will be there running tech, and so you will get to see me briefly, but I'm actually not going to be the host of this one. It's going to be Pearl Brady, who's incredible member. She's also my squad mod currently. She's incredible. You're not going to want to miss this one. And we also, of course, have our upcoming community circle on Tuesday of next week, which is for Hispanic, Latina, and Latinx women. So definitely come on by. In person, we have coming up, our Cincinnati chapter is hosting their October happy hour on Wednesday. That's today. Our Philadelphia chapter is hosting their Cozy Cocktails in the City on Wednesday. Again, today, Cozy Cocktails in the City sounds amazing. New York City on Thursday is hosting their Networking 101 Part 2. So if you went to their Networking 101 event previously, you won't want to miss the sequel. And even if you weren't able to make it, definitely come on in. It's really just going over what you need to know about networking and in, the fun Ellevate way. And then finally, our Long Island chapter, not too far from New York City, is going to be hosting their mini wellness retreat, yoga, movement, meditation, and renewal. That's going to be on Tuesday. I'm so excited for this. And let me tell you, if I was still in the New York area, I would be going over to Long Island and doing this because this sounds amazing. Let's go ahead and get to my interview with Melanie Booher. She believes every business expert has a book inside them. As a culture expert and best-selling author herself, she understands how a book can enhance your professional career and open doors to promote your business. She's president of Influence Network Media, a go-to media company for business experts to produce, publish, and promote business books for other business experts. Let's get right into it. I know this is a topic that so many of you are wondering about. Let's go now. Hi, Melanie. Welcome to the Ellevate Podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
We are so excited to have you here. You have quite a lot going on in your career and in your career journey. So I think we're going to kick things off just by asking the question we always ask, but this will be a fun one. How did you get to where you are in your career?
I love that. Such a loaded question. So, I don't go back too far, but I actually thought I was going to be a teacher someday. My parents were both teachers. I wound up going to human resources and loved it. I know not everyone loves HR, but that was kind of my path. But for the past going on decade, I've been a consultant and running my own business. And it has been pretty awesome. I kind of am just one of those people that likes to lean into the uncomfortable. And so, I started my own business really just to get out of corporate America. I knew I was unhappy with some of the things that were happening there. My focus has been on creating great workplaces. And what really launched me into doing my own thing was that the CEO I was working with decided not to show up the day that we won our Best Place to Work award. And for me, that was really telling, right? Like that was that aha moment of we're just not on the same page. This was a really important and special event where we had the majority of the team attending pep rally. And so I used that aha moment to really as a catalyst, to launch myself into starting my own business. What happened from there was just a series of taking time to be innovative and writing a book and growth. And I somehow am a serial entrepreneur. So what happened is I started a second business, which is a lot of what we're going to talk about today, Influence Network Media. And that just grew out of wanting to help other people, help them write their own book, find their voice, and really just kind of grow themselves as a leader. So I've kind of had a full circle moment and enjoying what I'm doing.
I love all of that, but I also love that you wanted to be a teacher and you kind of ended up being a teacher in a way.
That is true. I do feel like that, educating others, and through whether that's through books or through my culture coaching and consulting. I knew as a teacher is because I like to deal with people, right? And I think that's why some go into human resources, same type of thing. I'm coaching adults, right? A lot more than children, which is a little bit different. But even with the book stuff, right? Those are lifelong education. So I agree with you.
Yeah, definitely. I am still processing your CEO not showing up to the event. That's so insane to me.
Right? I wonder if sometimes when I look back, if he hears me talk about this, because I use that story quite often. And I try to, I don't say his name or the company name or anything like that, but it really was a moment in my life where it just sat on my heart in the wrong way, tugged at those heartstrings of, I wanted to lift people up as I went. I wanted to celebrate work. We spend so much time at work, and I'm a mom of 3 small kids. And those were the epiphanies I was having, right? Like how can I balance this life? Is there such thing as balance? How can I enjoy my work and, bring my best self and be a good mom and all those things? And it just kind of came through where I was like, I'm not supposed to be in this. It was a small business, but it still felt very corporate American. I'm not supposed to be in this job. I'm supposed to do something different. So I opened that door and I've never looked back.
Wow. I want to jump on one thing that you said where you said that you lean into the uncomfortable. Uh Huge respect for that. I am a person who is very uncomfortable with the uncomfortable. I get a lot of anxiety when things are unknown. Do you have any tips for people in terms of navigating the uncomfortable or even kind of learning to appreciate the uncomfortable?
Yeah. I don't know, Megan, I love that you're admitting that, right? Not everyone can even admit it. I think what I've discovered for myself is that it's not as bad as you believe, right? We've built up a story in our head that often is worse than it's ever going to be. So I can hear my mom, or growing up, my mom would always say, you should always ask because the worst thing they can say is no, right? It's that same kind of idea. Like, okay, how bad could this really be if I try it? And if you take that mindset of everything I try is just a lesson, it's not a failure. Like I'm learning, you could literally then say you've never failed in your life because you've just kept trying and kept learning. So I say that a little bit tongue in cheek. I feel like I have had to learn from a few possible failures, but I think the advice around that would be, it is going to feel uncomfortable. Trust yourself, listen to your body, right? Like, hey, oh, this feels a little different. I think I should try this. When I first thought of even like the idea of writing a book, I'm like, who am I? Who am I to write a book? I definitely dealt with the inner critic and, I'm trying to think of the exact wording, right? But that idea that I wasn't good enough to even write.
Imposter syndrome.
Yes, thank you. Imposter syndrome. Who am I? Like, why would anyone want to hear from me or what I have to say? And there's those moments of where you really feel like you're standing naked in front of a crowd, which, is a daunting, scary experience all on its own. And I just kind of thought, you know what? I do feel like I have things to say. I have things I'd love to share with the world. I'm just going to try it. And so the rip off the Band-Aid analogy is sometimes needed, right? You get it done, try it. And it's often the reward on the other side has been worth it. I do feel like I've taken some neat paths that were not the most traveled because I've been willing to do that.
I know we can't see each other because this is audio only, but like I have been nodding along for like the last minute, or I was like, yes, yes, yes. Especially with the imposter syndrome stuff. I definitely feel a lot of that.
That's normal. I think that's part of being human. Um, and I still feel it sometimes, right? And then I just have little mantras I say to myself sometimes, like if I'm getting up to speak to a group, or I'll say, well, do they know my topic better than me, right? Do they know workplace culture? And typically, no, they don't. They haven't invested 20 years of their life, right? Or, 10 and, they haven't invested that much time in their life studying this and wanting to be better and listening to companies and surveying and whatever. And so I'm like, that's great. They may have some different perspective. And in that case, I'd love to learn from it. But I do feel like if you have something worth saying, you should say it, and say it kind of loud and proud. And there's a bit of a filter I try to use as I'm speaking, which is kind of that, is it helpful, helpful or useful? Is it kind? And is it something that's going to kind of resonate with others and be helpful in some way? So I very much am trying to use a little bit of a filter, but I speak my mind quite often. So there's
I love that. I can tell you as, prime example, I had tons of imposter syndrome when starting the podcast. When I first got the podcast, it was, given to me by somebody else who was like, I want to move away from this. And at first I was just scheduling, and I was scheduling guests, and I was, helping kind of do a little behind the scenes. And I was terrified of that. I was like, I don't know how to run a podcast. What do you mean run a podcast? Like, surely there must be somebody more knowledgeable than me. And then it became, all right, every once in a while, you're going to step in and help co-host. And then it was, all right, you're going to co-host. And then it was, all right, you're going to interview some guests. And every single time I felt imposter syndrome, crippling imposter syndrome, but I just did it. And it's now my favorite thing that I do.
I love that. I think
Yeah.
kudos to you, right? And that's also a testament to kind of the human spirit. You can do more than you realize. They always say, right, we only use a small percent of our brain or whatever. I think we're more apt, and we have the ability to be even more than we can imagine for ourselves. And if everyone approached life that way, I think we'd see even more amazing things happening in the world.
Yes. So I want to talk about, you mentioned that people, when they have a voice, when you want them to raise it, I feel like that ties in perfectly with your business, helping people publish and write books. Do you want to talk about that and how that was kind of born? I know you mentioned you're a serial entrepreneur.
Yes. So I realized that people wanted to talk about writing books more than my consulting business. So every time I'd be wanting to talk HR, consulting, culture, I'd be talking with a business leader. And typically, when you're talking with business leaders, they've gotten there in some way or fashion. And so I would just kind of lean in and start asking them questions about themselves. And we'd be talking about my book, and they'd say, I want to write a book, or I've thought about writing a book. And I just nurtured that flame a little bit. And I would say, well, what would you write about? Or, and the questions would always come up. Well, how did you get on Amazon? Who edited, who published, who formatted, who did your mock-ups, or who do you have a designer for cover design? So like I'd get all these questions, and I kind of stepped back. My business partner is Jody Brandstetter, and she had written her book as well. And we started talking one day through coincidence. We knew each other from a human resource perspective here in Cincinnati. And lo and behold, we wind up living in the same neighborhood, which we had no idea. We live like a half a mile from each other. And so we took a walk one day, and we just kind of threw this brainstorm out there. We're like, people want to write books and they need help. They need someone to take away all the BS, and just because we're catering to busy business leaders. This isn't just any, it's not romance and werewolves or whatever, right? It's all business books. But they needed us to remove some of the barriers for them, right? The barriers of cost, time, and then just the knowledge of getting it done. And we feel like we've been able to do that. That was the idea. How can we take what we've done with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and replicate it in a way that's, I don't want to say easy, but it's simple. There's a process. You can follow the process, and it's much easier. And we can help them become authors. And that's really what we've done. We've also perfected, or I believe, this idea that you can write a solo book, but there's a magical lift that happens when you write with other authors who are passionate about a topic that you're passionate about. So example, we have a culture book that's going to be coming out here soon called Culture Impact. Everyone mark your calendars. And, I'm a culture leader. So that's, I'm writing a chapter actually about gamification of culture and how to gamify it in the workplace. But I know I just do it in one way. There's lots of other great ways to create amazing workplace cultures. So I sourced some colleagues and friends and people on LinkedIn and found some thought leaders and said, hey, let's all come together. We'll all write a chapter. And then we will be getting the word out about how to create amazing workplace, from different perspectives, because there's no one right way to do it. And the strategy behind it is that there's also this, again, magical networking. We're all going to get our book out to people in each other's networks. They're going to read our book in our chapters, and they're going to reach out to who they want, right? Who resonates with them. But we're basically getting 10 times the exposure because we're able to all network it out to our group together. So that's kind of the magic behind what we're doing with these collective books.
Yay. That's exactly what Ellevate Network is about. So I just kind of let out that yay there. Is just connecting and reaching out and using other people. I love that idea of, I've always thought of, co-writing as kind of a sharing of knowledge, which is a beautiful thing in itself. But I hadn't also thought of sharing of networks with one another.
Yeah. Well, when I did my solo, in order to get like the Amazon bestseller status, there's kind of you got to pick your categories. There's kind of a formula, if you will, but I picked them. And then you have to get for that launch day, I'd say like 250 to 300 is probably the number of people that you need to buy your book on launch day to get like the #1 new release and some of the other bestseller categories. So as a solo person getting 300 people, and I don't just mean like, yeah, someday I'll buy your book, but like today, I need you to buy my book today. That can be a challenge. But if you divide that up on, most of our books are about 10 people, you only need to get about 30 people, right? That becomes such a more manageable number. And then everyone is posting and sharing and everyone is getting their people to buy. And the excitement that kind of builds behind that and then multiplies and gets out into your network, it's a cool thing to watch happen. And again, the whole idea was not, can I make someone famous with a book? Like there's not a lot of money in, unless you're Danielle Steele or Simon Sinek, like there's not a lot of money in books. But there is if you get a client from it, right? So like we do this very economically. And the idea is like, if I get one client, I've more than made my money back for what I've done to become a co-author with these other leaders.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm just wondering how, because we talked about imposter syndrome earlier, how do you make that ask of, hi, could you please buy my book? Not just a in the future, but please buy it today. Like, how do you make that ask?
One of my charms or not charms, you can take it either way, is that I'm very transparent. So I think I've just said it kind of just like that. Hey, I'm trying to meet a goal. I need to get, my 30 people to support us. That means I really need you to buy the book today so that we can get our #1 new release on Amazon. And we're talking about typically a launch book price for an ebook is $2. And so it is not hard to get, friends, family, colleagues to be willing to spend $2 to support you. That's easy. It's usually then it's the people that are like, well, I don't want an ebook. I really want your paperback or I want a hard copy. And my mother's a great example. And so I was like, Mom, I love that. And I will absolutely get you a hard copy when it comes out. But the way we do it is we launch the ebook first to drum up all that interest, to get the awards and accolades, of #1 new release. And then a week later, we launch the paperback. Again, that's very intentional because we need to get, people buying the $1.99 ebook so that we can win the accolades. Later, we launch the paperback and people can get that when they want. And we're not so hung up on like the number of book sales other than to get the awards. We really want our authors to be able to sell the book themselves through their speaking engagements or book clubs or networking or whatever, through their website. So we're trying to teach them how to use their book to better their business, not so much lining our pockets as the hybrid publisher. And that's different from traditional publishers, I think, as well.
Definitely very different. I have to say that when a while back, I thought that I was going to get into publishing. That was my dream. I had always, as a kid, I'd always wanted to be an author, and I wrote plenty. But as I got older, I was like, maybe I just want to be in publishing, and I tried to get into it. It's a very tough industry. And then I ended up at Ellevate and just falling in love with Ellevate. So that's a different story. But it's everything that every time I learn about the publishing industry and the like hoops that you have to go through and the twists and turns and the bestseller lists, it's so crazy. And so I just really give props to you for navigating that.
Well, thank you. When we're business leaders, I mean, Jody and I, we learned it ourselves, right, through our own blood, sweat, and tears. And I think because we never set out to get rich from it, that was never our intention. Our intention was, hey, we learned this, let's share it. And wouldn't it be cool if we helped other people do this because it feels good and it's the right thing to do? Oh, and we have our other businesses. So it does support my other business. And to kind of like full circle this, when I talk about culture coaching, I'll say, I'm making the world better one workplace at a time. And that's kind of a big like Pollyanna, right? Like I want to make the world better. We're doing it one workplace at a time. When I talk about writing books, I will say, making the world better or positively impacting the world one leader at a time. And it's a very similar ask, right? Or it's a very similar quest, I guess I should say. I really believe that when you help people be their best self, whether it's them as an author and getting their word out, or them as a leader and creating the best team and surrounding themselves with the best people and practices, like both of those to me are very, endearing, amazing, right? Things that you can do for yourself to make the world better.
Definitely. So I do have to ask, since you are a culture coach, like I feel like I have to ask this. We have seen the world of work culture dramatically change in the last, few years. What good or bad or anything have you seen from recent workplace changes, and what are you still hoping to see in the future? Like what's your goal that one day we get to?
Yeah. I mean, we've seen a ton change, right? What I think has been hard kind of coming through COVID, and if it's not COVID, it'll be something else. There's always some, sadly, there's always some tragedy, some huge thing that's impact. Now, again, this was on a different scale for us, but the next generation will have their next big thing too. The biggest thing has been, right, how remote work has changed the workplace. And what we're seeing is so many small businesses have that knee-jerk reaction of get back in the office. And we're fighting that, right? And there's lots of employees that are like, well, why would I come back in the office? We had record-breaking numbers and profits and, stock prices, and you're telling me now I have to get back in the office. That doesn't really make sense. So we're trying to help employers recognize that. Like, you can be successful this new way. You don't have to do what you've always done to get there. But having a more, what we would call, instead of like a traditional workforce, right? Having a more hybrid or forward-thinking workforce is a good thing. And then supporting that and really helping leaders think about not having the knee-jerk reaction of going back to the way that it was, because we can never go back to that. That's a lot of the work that we're doing. Kind of, it's almost more mindset work, but what gives them peace of mind is knowing that we have some processes and some games that we play with them to gamify it, to make it something where they then feel set up for success. What we're doing is giving them tools for culture that they've never had before in the form of a book, a game, an app, that they can put it to use and not just trust their gut. That's what happened in the past. Leaders would just say, oh, I just trust my gut. I'm really good with people. And we just know it's more than that. So let's give them some tools and help them see how it can happen and utilize the power of habit. That's one of our biggest keys that we're doing, helping people use their everyday habits to drive great culture.
Yes. 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 And I love that you kind of very firmly put your foot down of saying we cannot go back to the way it was.
We cannot. What's funny? I actually changed my tagline on LinkedIn to say, life's too short to work with jerks. And I have had more comments from people saying, like, I totally believe that. Like, I love that you just put that out there. And I believe that too, right? Like I tell the story that, my dad, like I mentioned, he was a teacher. He went on to become a high school principal, and he would come home just exhausted. And he would say to us as a family, I've had this horrible day, whatever. I think people were really hard on their teachers and principals, but he would say, work got the best of me. You get what's left over. And I was like, man, that's a hard thing to say to your family. And so as I'm raising my own kids and, dogs and husbands, and am home after work, I felt myself saying that as if that was okay. Like, you get what's left over. And I was like, wait a minute, that's not okay, right? Like, that's not just because my dad used to say that, that's not all right. And so I'm kind of trying to fly in the face of like what we've always done is not what we need to do to get where we need to be today. And so I'm trying to change that. And that's hard. I can feel it. I've heard that same mantra a lot throughout my life, but I'm trying to say that's not all right. You deserve just as much. You deserve the good side of me. And that, right, when someday on my tombstone, I don't want it to say Melanie was the best worker ever and her family got the leftovers. I want them to say, that I really made an effort in both fronts, or I made a difference in both fronts, and what great people I raised. So kind of just shifting that on its head a bit and being more aware of how we can make that difference, even though we might have been brought up to think a different way about it.
Yeah. And can I just say, you have so beautifully brought this back around, because before we go into our lightning round, the final question I was going to ask was, I have recently just become an aunt for the first time.
Congrats.
And it's an absolute delight. She's perfect. She's 6 months old. But that means that I'm seeing for the first time my brother and his fiance, going through, both of them work. Both of them are obviously very active mother and father. What tips do you have for people trying to balance either corporate and parenthood, or entrepreneurship and parenthood, which I imagine is its own whole world? What do you have, that you've learned?
I think the biggest thing is to think about who you're surrounding yourself with, right? If we're supposedly the product of the 12 people that we surround ourselves with the most, like, be conscious and aware of who are those 12 people that you're allowing to mold your life and be part of who you are. And not only that, then that's your tribe, right? So your tribe will be the people you take advice from, will be you share the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the great. But I think as I am figuring out, right, and making sure I have good tribal support, whether that's family or friends that are like family or colleagues, that has been a huge element for me, as well as like, who do I let in? Who do I let in to, be around my children, right? To mentor and guide and those kinds of things. And then it's also impacted how I choose to work. So example, we talk about these collective books. Like, I'm creating a tribe every time I pull together a group of leaders who think about a topic or have a passion for a certain topic. And to go back, that's also really important, right? It's important who you surround yourself with, both personally and professionally. And so I think that for me, it all comes back to the people.
That's really beautiful. And I kind of hadn't thought of it that way. It's so often the tips are, oh, do this, this, and this, do your mornings with this. I hadn't thought of it in terms of, again, you're bringing it back to networks, who is it that's around you?
Mm-hmm.
So this has been amazing. I just want to say.
Thank you.
Yes. And so if you don't mind, we're going to go into our lightning round, where I'm just going to ask you a few questions. You can do one sentence or less. You can go a little longer. Lots of people go a little longer. I know when I did these for fun, I went way too long. So first off, does pineapple belong on pizza?
I think it does.
Yes!
I'm a pineapple. I like pineapple and bacon. So I think that the sweet complements what's the savory. I do think I'm the only person in my family that believes this, but yeah, I'm all in.
Same. I think we're kindred spirits, because my entire family is like, Megan, why do you eat that? I love pepperoni with pineapple. I think it's so good.
Oh, yeah. I'll try that next. I haven't yet, but I will.
Yes. Oh, definitely recommend. What sport would you want to compete in if you were in the Olympics?
Oh my goodness. Lightning. Is golf an Olympic sport?
It is now.
Is it really? I don't even know.
Yeah.
I'm like thinking like I'm getting too old to play any sport. Well, do I have to play with my current body or my old body?
No, it's whatever you want. This is your dream.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Man, I mean, I have a lot of sports that I love. Like, in my dreams, I can play soccer really well again, like I was in my youth, but my current state and my knees don't like that so much. But then I'm like, I wish I could really golf well, because I love being out in nature, and I'm terrible at golf. And I like to kind of play it from a business perspective. But I'm saying that, and then I'm like, I don't even know if I knew golf was an Olympic sport. So that's also not the smartest element I've ever said.
It recently did become an Olympic sport.
Good. Okay. Well, then I'm on the right path. Then I'll have to be I'll be more aware of it.
Yes, yes, definitely. Let's see here. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
I think I don't know. I like the idea of flying. I know it's not like running through walls or saving people or I think I would really enjoy flight. That's what I'm gonna say. I want to fly.
Oh, nothing wrong with that. What is the most used app on your phone?
Most used app right now, it's Team Snap, which is the team like for keeping track of all of your children's sports, right? So I've got soccer and basketball and all that stuff, and I know I'm on there constantly, making sure I'm not forgetting to take a child to something important.
Oh my god, that's so my parents. I was the oldest of three, and we had like a mega size calendar so that we could write out what all was going on when.
Yes, I have color coded on our refrigerator by person, so I
Oh,
totally get that. And I was like trying to think, I'm like, is that the one I'm in the most often? I do think it is right now. Or I do love to take photos too. I fashion myself like I'm really a photographer, but it's all through my iPhone. But I do love photos.
yeah. Let's see here. Oh, would you rather explore outer space or the bottom of the ocean?
I think I have a fear of both. I'm going to go with outer space because I don't like the idea of like a megalodon and sharks. They really are scary to me. So I'll
That's
just go with
fair.
the unknown and look at the galaxy and some amazing
You
things
did
out
say you were comfortable with the uncomfortable.
there. I know, you're right. You're right, but I don't know that I'll change that one.
No, 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 that's fine. That's what I mean is you said you would go with the unknown of
The unknown.
yeah,
Yeah.
go with that. Let's see. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Best piece of advice. I think for me, it came in the form of a saying that you hear people say, but you don't know how to take it. And that is the saying, like, to pay it forward. Um, I actually didn't realize the depth of that advice until I read Catherine Ryan Hyde's book, Pay It Forward. You can also watch the movie. It's one of the few times I can say the book was better. I don't get to say that very often. But that idea, right, that you can change people's lives by paying it forward, not by buying them coffee, the person in line behind you, because that's what we've made it as Americans. But the real concept of pay it forward was to do something profound for three people in their lives. And then they pay it forward, right? And then they pay it forward. And you kind of spread this amazing, hopefully, goodness trend, right, across the world. And so that for me, I think would be a really great advice. I'm trying to live my life by that. And I'm trying to, the whole idea of the writing books and the spreading great culture, like that's a pay it forward moment of trying to make humanity better. So let's pay it forward, everybody.
Yes. And finally, final question. What is one thought that you would want to leave with our listeners?
I would say, if I could leave a thought with you, it's that you have a voice and you need to lean into it. So listen to that thing that you're passionate about. What is it that you find yourself talking about, getting excited about, you want to do more of? And whatever that is, there's a theme there. And I would encourage you to lean into that and to think about how you might write something, whether that's an amazing blog, it needs to be shared with the world. So find your voice, use your voice, get it out. The chapters that we're writing are a blog on steroids, and we find people that are passionate about similar topics that you might be. And just that idea of like, get past the imposter syndrome. I know you can do it. And part of that is ripping off that Band-Aid, being a writer and putting it out there for the world. And all of this comes full circle because for me, it is that moment of how you would pay it forward in that element.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited thrilled to be here and excited to partner with you guys. And thanks for having me.
Thank you. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed doing the interview myself. Let's get straight into our history makers this week. We have LaFonza Butler, who became the first openly Black lesbian to serve in the U.S. Congress. She was appointed to serve in the seat that Dianne Feinstein, legend, long-term Congress member, vacated after she passed recently. So congratulations to LaFonza. Haley Van Voris became the first woman non-kicker to appear in a college football game. Kim Ng became the first woman to lead an MLB team to the playoffs. My hero, my legend, my inspiration, my everything, Simone Biles, became the first woman to land a Yurchenko double pike vault at the World Championships. She had landed it before, but because it was at domestic meets, you have to land it at a major international meet, such as the World Championships or a World Cup nowadays. Didn't used to be the World Cups. Used to be just World Championships. Now you have a few more opportunities, which means that it is now the Biles 2 on vault, and she has 5 total skills named after her: 2 on vault, 1 on beam, 2 on floor. I just needed to get the bars skill so that, we have the full set. She's everything. Also at the Gymnastics World Championships, Lindsey Brown, who I adore and have adored for ages. She competed for the University of Denver, which I have a big soft spot for, and was fabulous. Got a bajillion tens there, as she deserved, particularly on floor. She's amazing. She became the first gymnast to compete for Haiti at the World Gymnastics Championships. Good for her. Good for Haiti. And you want to talk about a team that I have a soft spot for? This just happened as of the recording. I'm still a little emotional about it. Rebecca Andrade, Jaje Barbosa, Lorraine Oliveira, Flavia Saraiva, Julia Suarez, and Carolyn Pedro became the first Brazilian team to medal in the team final at the World Gymnastics Championships. And they got the silver. Like, when I was already walking in there, I was like, oh my God, they might get a medal. And then they went ahead of China and they were in the silver spot and I was losing it. And super special shout out, of course. I know technically speaking, it's not a first, but it is a first in 70 years. Shout out to the French team: Maureen Boyer, Laurette Charpet, Melanie de Jesus dos Santos, Colleen Devillard, Morgane Osasek, and Jenna Lurie. Sorry if I butchered any of those. My French is horrible, but they are all incredible gymnasts. I have watched so many of them for so long, and they managed to get the first in 70 years team medal for France. If you watch anything, watch Melanie de Jesus dos Santos' reaction to, first of all, watch her beam, because she had to get like a 13 something on beam, and which was slightly higher than she'd gotten in qualifications. And she did the beam routine of her life, got a 14, stuck everything. She was sobbing. She was running. They were all running. They were screaming together. It was so good when that score came in. And then she actually trains with Simone Biles and Jocelyn Roberson of the US team. She trains at their gym. And so they were running up to her and hugging her and going, Melanie. They were so excited, and their coach was crying. And it was a beautiful, beautiful moment in international sports. So everybody go watch gymnastics. Congratulations to all of our history makers. Shout out to all of them. And shout out to all the amazing gymnasts who are making history every day. You know I'm rooting you on. Next up, we are going to have Maricella's interview with Deb Golden. She is the U.S. Cyber and Strategic Risk Leader for Deloitte. An empathetic team builder and insightful business leader, Deb's forward-thinking approach has cemented Deloitte's position as a leading technology and service provider, and her transformational leadership style fosters a culture of innovation, purpose, accountability, ownership, and autonomy. See you then! Ellevate Network drives real results for ambitious women trying to break through the glass ceiling and achieve success in their careers. We offer a platform full of resources and opportunities for growth, all designed to help you unlock your potential. With Ellevate support, you can take the first step toward achieving your professional goals. With a supportive community and tangible resources at your fingertips, you're only one step away from reaching your fullest potential. Join us today and take advantage of our 30-day free trial to start building the career of your dreams. Thanks so much for listening to the Ellevate Podcast. If you like what you hear, you can subscribe, give us 5 stars, and share your review. You can learn all about Ellevate membership and all the great things that Ellevate Network is doing at our website, www.ellevatenetwork.com. That's ELLEVATE network.com. And special thanks to our producer, Katherine Heller. She rocks. Thanks so much, and join us next week.